If you were told that every phone, laptop, and piece of technology giving access to humanity's digital knowledge could be destroyed, you would likely doubt it, and for good reason, because it seems impossible in the short term. A sudden global catastrophe like an asteroid impact, nuclear war, or supervolcano could erase vast amounts of information within minutes or days. A slow collapse through neglect, decay, and loss of technical skill could take centuries. Yet one of the most advanced knowledge centers was destroyed in moments, leaving unanswered questions about lost wisdom and what knowledge was lost in that movement. So let's go back in time to uncover what was lost. Most people know that the Library of Alexandria was officially completed in the 3rd century BCE during the rule of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. And it was called the Mouseion, which literally meant the House of the Muses, because it was designed not just as a storage place for scrolls, but as a living center of learning where ideas were grown and tested. A second library was later added under his successor, Ptolemy III, and it was known as the Serapeum, named after the Greco-Egyptian god Serapis. So from that point on, Alexandria became a magnet for scholars from all over the known world, because it offered them a place to teach, learn, debate, and build what would eventually become the most legendary library in ancient history. One of the earliest leaders of the Mouseion was Ctesibius, who was an inventor and mathematician, and he became famous because of his obsession with compressed air, which earned him the nickname Father of Pneumatics. According to Vitruvius, Ctesibius built extremely advanced water clocks that could activate moving mechanisms at specific times, so they behaved almost like early programmable machines. During one major public spectacle organized by Ptolemy II, a statue of the goddess Nysa was said to stand up on its own, pour milk as an offering, and then sit back down, which sounded like magic to people of that time, even though it was powered by engineering. Even though none of his original writings survived, some of his ideas lived on inside the works of later writers, which is why we still know about his greatest invention, the hydraulis, a water-driven pipe organ that later evolved into the modern church organ. At its height, the Library of Alexandria stored a massive number of scrolls and texts, with estimates ranging anywhere from 40,000 to more than 500,000 works, covering subjects from science to poetry to law. Tracking a collection that huge required a special system, so Callimachus created the Pinnaces, which wasn't just a list of books, but a detailed catalog that included information about the authors, summaries, and judgments about whether texts were authentic. So it basically worked like an ancient version of a modern library database. Unfortunately, the Pinax itself was lost, which means the key to understanding the true size and structure of the library disappeared along with many of its treasures. Some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs made there came from Eratosthenes, who served as head librarian and managed to figure out that the Earth was round and calculate its circumference with astonishing accuracy. He noticed that at a certain time of year, the sun cast no shadow in Cyane, while objects in Alexandria did cast shadows. And because he knew the distance between the two cities and realized they lay along the same north-south line, he used geometry to work out the size of the planet. His final calculation fell between 39,060 and 40,320 kilometers, depending on how you convert the ancient unit called a stadium, which is shockingly close to the modern measurement of about 40,075 kilometers. For a long time, his work survived because later scholars like Claudius Ptolemy and Marinus of Tyre referenced it. But eventually, even those detailed writings faded into obscurity. Ancient mathematics was far more developed than most people assume, because later discoveries have proven that early thinkers already understood concepts that were thought to be modern inventions. Plutarch recorded a debate where Chrysippus claimed that combining 10 simple statements could produce more than 1,000,000 logical combinations. But Hipparchus challenged this and provided the exact number of 103,049 combinations. It wasn't until 1994 that modern mathematicians realized this number matched what is now called the 10th Schroeder number, which describes how many ways a sequence of 10 symbols can be grouped. So this proved that ancient scholars had already solved complex combinatorics problems nearly 2,000 years before modern researchers fully formalized the field. Hipparchus himself was more than a mathematician. because he was one of the greatest scientific minds of ancient times, especially in astronomy, and after his death around 120 BCE, the field seemed to slow down for generations. Centuries later, Seneca described how celestial bodies constantly move forward, and that what looks like backward motion is actually an illusion caused by perspective, which closely matches the idea that planetary motion is not truly centered on Earth. Although we don't know the exact sources Seneca used, many historians believe he was drawing from ideas that either originated with Hipparchus or were at least widely known during his time. Even though Hipparchus did not openly support a sun-centered system, he calculated models for it, which means he understood the concept even if he didn't promote it. Another important thinker from that era was Seleucus of Seleucia, a contemporary of Hipparchus who openly supported heliocentrism. Strabo recorded that Seleucus studied ocean tides and explained them using the movements of the sun and moon, and this likely led him to propose that the moon and Earth both moved around a shared center rather than one orbiting the other in isolation. He also argued that the universe was infinite, which was a radical idea for his time, but sadly none of his original writings survived, so his full reasoning has been lost. Euclid of Alexandria is remembered as one of the most important mathematicians in human history because his work elements became one of the most widely copied and studied books of all time. Even so, sources suggest that as much as half of his original research disappeared, including much of his work on conic sections and mechanical theory. The field of optics also suffered massive losses when the library declined, because although some of Euclid's optical studies survive, they only represent an early stage of research. Later works by Ptolemy appear to be incomplete reconstructions of older knowledge, and some ancient references suggest that Hipparchus had already developed an early theory of binocular vision nearly 2,000 years before Galileo and Hans Lippershey created the first practical telescopes. Medicine suffered deeply from the destruction of the Maussion because progress stalled for over 1,000 years after much of the accumulated knowledge vanished. One of the most famous ancient doctors was Herophilus, who is often called the father of anatomy, and even though his own books are lost, later physicians quoted his findings. He appears to have been the first person in recorded history to systematically dissect human bodies, and during his career he carefully studied the heart, blood vessels, nerves, digestion, and reproduction. In his work on midwifery, he gave extremely detailed descriptions of pregnancy, childbirth, and female reproductive anatomy, and his goal was to remove fear and misunderstanding from these processes so doctors could treat complications more effectively. He also explored mental health, the meaning of dreams, and the importance of healthy habits. Possibly the most damaging loss wasn't a single book, but the scientific method itself, because after the Hellenistic period, fewer scholars combined theory with hands-on experimentation. Many researchers started treating older writings as unquestionable truths instead of testing ideas themselves. So when those trusted texts disappeared, later generations could not reproduce or verify important discoveries. This created a gap in the scientific progress that lasted for centuries. Historical writing vanished on a massive scale as well. Several works by Callisthenes, who traveled with Alexander the Great, were lost, including detailed histories of Greek and regional wars. Other writers like Agatharchides created works about Europe, Asia, and the Red Sea region. And although only one of these texts survived, its quality suggests the lost volumes likely contain valuable geographical and political information. One particularly fascinating loss was Pytheas of Massalia's account called On the Ocean, which described voyages to the British Isles, Northern Europe, and the Baltic Sea. Everything we know about his journey now comes from second-hand references, although his original work could have provided first-hand knowledge that would have been priceless to later explorers. In philosophy, many key texts from the earliest sophists disappeared, including works from Protagoras, Perdiccas, and Gorgias. Even though later philosophers criticized them, their writings shaped early debates about truth, language, and knowledge. Protagoras was especially controversial because he openly supported agnosticism at a time when such views were dangerous, and ancient sources claim that his books were publicly burned, although copies likely survived for centuries in places like Alexandria. Diogenes Laertius listed many of Protagoras' writings, but his most famous and controversial works Truth and on the Gods vanished around the same time the library began to decline. The Stoic school of philosophy also suffered massive losses, especially the works of Chrysippus, who wrote more than 160 books but is now known only through fragments. Ancient literature was devastated as well, because countless works of poetry and myth vanished along with the library. Epics like the Titanomachy, which told alternate versions of the Wars of the Gods, were lost along with the Thebaid and Epigone, which told the full story of the war between the sons of Oedipus. Several parts of the epic cycle that expanded on the Trojan War, such as the Little Iliad, the Sack of Troy, and the Returns, also disappeared, leaving gaps in what was once a complete mythological timeline. There is even a story that Ptolemy III tried to buy the original manuscripts of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides from Athens. And when he was refused, he borrowed them with a huge gold deposit and never returned the originals. So if that legend is true, those priceless texts likely vanished in Alexandria. For a long time, people believed the Library of Alexandria was destroyed in one dramatic, fiery disaster. But the truth appears to be more complicated. As the Ptolemaic kingdom weakened, the Museion lost funding and political protection, and civil wars, riots, and poor administration made it harder to maintain such a massive institution. During Julius Caesar's campaign in Egypt around 48 to 47 BCE, a fire spread during the siege of Alexandria and damaged parts of the library, although sources disagree on how severe the destruction really was. Even so, the library continued to function for centuries afterward, but under Roman rule it slowly faded, and by the 3rd century CE, it was only a shadow of what it had once been. The remaining parts of the main library were destroyed during the crisis of the 3rd century, and the Serapeum survived slightly longer until it was destroyed in 391 CE by Christian groups. Even though the loss of the Library of Alexandria was a tragedy for humanity, not all knowledge disappeared, because many texts had already been copied and distributed throughout the Mediterranean world over the centuries. Today, people assume modern technology makes knowledge permanent, but history shows that information is only as safe as the society that protects it. The library wasn't just destroyed by fire or by mobs, but by the slow belief that knowledge was too expensive, unnecessary, or inconvenient. Although the amount of knowledge lost wasn't as infinite as legends suggest, the amount that was created, preserved, and shared by the Great Library of Alexandria remains beyond calculation, because it shaped how humanity learned to think, question, and preserve ideas for generations that followed. What often gets overlooked is how the Library of Alexandria tried to preserve knowledge in a very aggressive way, because the Ptolemies didn't just collect books, they actively searched for them. Ships that entered the port of Alexandria were sometimes required to hand over any books on board, and librarians would copy the texts while keeping the originals and returning only the copies, so the library slowly became a kind of central vault for the world's written knowledge. This policy is described in later historical sources and helps explain why the collection grew so large, even though papyrus scrolls were fragile and constantly needed to be replaced. Another important fact is that the library was not a single building filled with shelves, but more like a research complex with living quarters, lecture halls, gardens, and dining rooms. Because scholars didn't just visit, they lived and worked there full-time. Many of them were paid by the state, which meant their only job was to think, write, argue, and experiment. There is also strong evidence that the library influenced later Islamic scholarship. After Alexandria's decline, much of Greek scientific and philosophical knowledge reappeared in Arabic translations in places like Baghdad during the Abbasid Caliphate. Scholars of the Islamic Golden Age preserved and expanded on works by Euclid, Galen, Hippocrates, and Ptolemy, which strongly suggests that copies of Alexandrian knowledge survived through other routes even after the physical institution collapsed. This is why the Renaissance in Europe later rediscovered Greek science through Arabic sources instead of directly from Alexandria. Archaeological evidence supports that the library was real and massive, even if we don't know the exact location of the main building. Excavations in Alexandria have uncovered parts of the Serapeum and lecture-style halls that match ancient descriptions of the daughter library, which confirms that large-scale scholarly infrastructure existed there. However, no clear ruins of the main Museion have been definitively identified. mostly because modern Alexandria is built directly over the ancient city. Modern historians also agree that the idea of a single blaze destroying everything is more myth than fact. Most serious scholarship now treats the destruction as a long process involving political instability, religious conflict, economic decline, and changing cultural values. The library didn't die overnight. It faded as support systems collapsed and interest in maintaining universal knowledge weakened. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.